Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into, well, a geopolitical hot zone that just flared up in a really unexpected way. Picture this. Thailand just deployed F-16 fighter jets against Cambodia. Now, that's a move we haven't seen for decades, right? Like late 80s, early 90s. It really makes you ask, what does this huge escalation mean? So, our mission today is to distill the key insights from this incredibly complex, multi-layered conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. We want to go beyond the headlines, understand the current flare-up, its deep historical roots, and maybe most surprisingly, the hidden economic and, political currents driving it all. Basically, I want to give you a shortcut to being really well informed on what's a fascinating and frankly critical regional dynamic.
It is quite striking. I mean, really, just a little while ago, remember after that skirmish back in May,
Hmm.
a Cambodian soldier was tragically killed then. But afterwards, it actually seemed like, cooler heads might be prevailing. Sure, there was still a political spat going on, some economic hits from a border closure, but the violence itself had stayed pretty low level. And now, boom, this very significant military escalation. It changes the whole picture.
Okay, let's unpack the immediate situation first. Thailand deploying F-16s. That is a big deal. What exactly triggered this specific military action?
Well, the Thai government's official statement is that it's a direct response to what they're calling indiscriminate artillery and rocket fire coming from Cambodia.
Hmm.
And this fire, unfortunately, it hit civilian targets inside Thailand. People were killed. Reports specifically mentioned a hospital being hit, other non-military areas too. So Thailand's move, they say, has been a much more surgical use of force. They're aiming to take out the specific units responsible for that initial artillery and rocket fire.
And how do the two militaries stack up against each other? Is there a big difference in capability? How does that play into things?
Oh, there's a huge disparity, a really substantial one. The Thai military is, one of the biggest in Southeast Asia. Much better resourced. Their budget is around, what, $7 billion US annually. Compare that to Cambodia's, which is maybe closer to a couple billion. And as we've seen with these airstrikes, Thailand just has the ability to hit targets with, well, far greater precision. But it's interesting, despite this imbalance, the Cambodian side has shown, historically and now, a much greater propensity to take risks.
Right. So given that military imbalance, and you'd think diplomatic pressure too, why would Cambodia risk pushing things this far? I mean, what does either side really gain from letting this conflict keep going?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the puzzle. My thinking before this big escalation was actually that maybe both sides were benefiting a bit politically at home from the previous lower level of violence. But now, it's much harder to see what either side really gets out of this if it keeps escalating, especially when you factor in the costs.
Okay, but to really get a handle on this, we have to look further back, don't we? This isn't just about the last few weeks or months. This dispute has deep roots. What's the history here?
You're absolutely right. The history goes way back. We're talking about a border that was drawn up in 1907. That was when Cambodia was still a French colony. And the Thai side has always consistently claimed that border was basically forced on them, negotiated under duress, never really agreed to. And this has led to some major legal fights. Two big cases at the International Court of Justice, the ICJ. Back in 1962, the ICJ gave this large temple right on the border, pre-Avagay, to Cambodia. Then later, another ICJ ruling handed over another bit of disputed land to the Cambodians. And this latest clash, it's in the Emerald Triangle region, also disputed territory. What's really telling is that Cambodia actually wants to go back to the ICJ again over this. But Thailand, they have zero interest. They lost twice there already. So you can see how these historical disputes, these legal rulings, they really tap into national pride on both sides. It runs deep.
But as we dig deeper, it gets even more fascinating. It looks like it's not just about border lines or, historical pride. Could both sides actually be getting something out of even these low-level hostilities, but for totally different internal reasons? Let's get into the domestic politics.
Exactly. It's a really complex web of internal political maneuvering. If you look at Cambodia first, think back to the 2010-2011 skirmish around Preah here. That happened right when Hun Mene, that's the son of the longtime leader Hun Sen, had just become Minister of Defense. And that whole period, it kind of served as a stepping stone for him, a test, really, a way to burnish his credentials, show he was a strong figure. So now, fast forward, he's 2 years into his own time as prime minister. It seems pretty likely he wants to do something similar again, demonstrate he's a strong leader, but also use it to further neutralize the opposition, which is already pretty weak and mostly in exile.
Okay, so that's the Cambodian angle. What about Thailand? You mentioned the Shinawatra clan.
Right. On the Thai side, you have the Shinawatra dynamic. There's that leaked phone call you might remember with the current PM, Patongtarn Shinawatra. She's Thaksin Shinawatра's daughter, a big figure in that political family. And in the call, she sounded, well, overly deferential to Hun Sen. The Thai military, who are, let's face it, very politically savvy, they've really skillfully used that perception of weakness and the conflict itself to sort of neutralize her and her father, Thaksin. He came back from exile in 2023, remember. Everyone assumed it was part of some big deal, a grand bargain with the palace. But the ultra-royalist factions, the military establishment, they were never happy about that deal, not at all. So they're cleverly using this border conflict now to really diminish the Shinawatra clan's power and influence.
Wow. Okay, so domestic politics are definitely swirling around this. But then you mentioned something even more, maybe unexpected. Billions of dollars involved. Scam centers. What's that about?
Yes, and this connection is something I think many people wouldn't immediately think of. There are pretty significant reports now suggesting this whole breakdown in relations is directly tied to lost revenue for Cambodian officials, right up to the top levels. Now, part of it might be Thailand thinking about legalizing casinos, which would cut into Cambodia's gambling revenue. But the really big factor seems to be these massive internet scam centers. We're talking operations valued in the tens of billions of dollars annually. That's huge money. And crucially, these centers are reportedly tied to the absolute highest levels of the Cambodian government, yes, including the Hun family itself. Now, for years, it seemed like the Thai government kind of turned a blind eye. They weren't exactly a great partner with the West on cracking down on these things.
But that's changed now.
That seems to have dramatically changed. Just recently, the Thais made a big move against a figure named Kok On. He's known as the godfather of Phoi Phet, that border town. He's a very close ally of Hun Sen, and he's a senator in Cambodia. Plus, a lot of Cambodian elites, they apparently have significant assets parked over in Thailand. Money, property, investments. And the Thais are now moving very quickly on this front, applying a lot of international pressure using financial levers against the Cambodian government. The Thais seem to understand something fundamental. The Cambodian People's Party, the CPP, and the whole Hun family political machine. It's deeply inextricably tied to the money flowing from these scam centers. Without that revenue, they simply couldn't maintain the huge patronage system that, guarantees their almost total grip on power. So effectively, what Thailand seems to be doing is trying to make this conflict hurt the Hun family personally, right in their wallets.
So if we pull all these different threads together, the history, the politics, the scam centers, the personal finances, what does this tell us about personal relationships in high-stakes international games, even really strong ones?
That's such a powerful point to consider. Because for years, you had these really close ties between Thaksin Shinawatra and Hun Sen. Very close. Remember, when Thaksin was PM in Thailand, he often clashed with his own military because he prioritized his business interest, sometimes framed as economic development, ahead of what the military saw as national security. He did similar things regarding Myanmar, for instance. And then, when Thaksin was forced into exile, he hosted him frequently. Hun Sen. It was partly genuine connection, but also a way to, needle the Thai establishment, the elites who ousted Thaksin. And historically, you saw this pattern anyway. Both sides would sometimes give sanctuary to political refugees from the other country, kind of as an irritant in the relationship. But seeing this breakdown now, despite that long personal history between Thaksin and Hun Sen, it's really quite striking. And I think it just underscores that leaders, when push comes to shove, will almost always put what they see as their narrow political interests ahead of personal friendships. Every time.
Looking back at everything we've unpacked here, what really stands out to you as the key takeaway from this deep dive?
For me, it's that this conflict, while it looks like a border dispute on the surface, is so much more. It's about consolidating power domestically. It's about serious economic leverage, possibly linked to illicit activities, and it's about the cold, hard calculus of political survival. And all of that can apparently override even long-standing personal connections between leaders.
Yeah, it really highlights how something seemingly straightforward can be this incredibly complex tapestry woven with history, internal power struggles, and even these multi-billion-dollar shadow economies. It's just a powerful reminder, isn't it, that what you see on the surface is very rarely the full story. Which leads to a final thought for you, our listener. If personal relationships at the very highest levels can be so easily put aside for political gain, what does that reveal about the real nature of things like back-channel diplomacy and maybe international relations itself?